Greetings and salutations, unfortunately for you. I'm back. I want to talk about the Moldvay method today. So, for those of you who are newer to the hobby, or you're younger, never heard of Tom Moldvay was a game designer who created the basic expert rule sets. I highly suggest getting the PDF and doing like I did. Print it off, get some page protectors, get a 3-ring binder, and there you go. For not a whole lot of money, you have basic and expert right there. And it didn't cost you hardly anything at all. So something I like to do is if I had to choose any particular desert island book or whatever, it'd be this. This is all you need. So don't mistake basic and expert as being incomplete. They're not incomplete. Um, they have enough to where you can have hours and years of gameplay. So in the back on page, if you have the PDF or you are blessed enough to have a physical book, go to page 51. We're going to part 8, the Dungeon Master information. And Tom Moldvay, who is an underrated giant in this hobby, and may he rest in peace, he included some very cool, simple tables for generating procedurally ideas for an adventure. We're going to go step by step. And I got to give a shout out to Daniel Norton over at Bandits Keep. He made an entire series on this. So definitely check out his videos. They're awesome. So, our first step is choose a scenario, which is a background. It ties the dungeon together. It keeps it from being this flavorless, bland thing of just going through rooms. You have a theme. And so there are 10 scenarios. You have exploring the unknown, investigating a chaotic outpost, recovering ruins, destroying an ancient evil, visiting a lost shrine, fulfilling a quest, escaping from enemies, rescuing prisoners, using a magical portal, or finding a lost race. So take our D10. Let's just say, now you can always choose, okay? So don't let anybody tell you you can't choose a scenario. You can. But let's say we have no idea. Let's say we got a game tomorrow. What do we want to come up with? 3, which is recovering ruins. The party is usually scouting an old village before permanent settlers move in. The ruins have often been overrun by a specific kind of monster which must be killed or driven away. The ruins could be part of or underneath a thriving town. So, there we go. Recovering ruins, and we need to decide on a setting. So, it's not necessary to draw a detailed map of the dungeon first, but it's useful to have a general idea of what it'll look like. Moldvay says, deciding on the shape of the dungeon, the DM should also outline ideas for rooms or areas in the dungeon. Common settings include the following. So, castle or tower, caves or cavern, abandoned mine, crypt or tomb, ancient temple, or stronghold or town. So let's take our d6. We don't know. Again, you could choose, but let's say we don't know. 2. So caves or cavern. So these are recovering ruins from caves or cavern. So maybe some of this lost kind of village that's been buried underneath this cavern system or inside this cavern system, or maybe it was even built in the cavern system. Maybe the cavern system has all these little like alcoves and stuff that a primitive race had built into the side of the walls that shelters. Let your imagination run wild. This should be the key. I'm going to use a very key word that I want you to keep in mind and remember. Modular. These rules were very modular. You could tweak them, you could remove them, you could add on to them, you could build upon them. So we all owe Moldvay a very great debt of gratitude for his contributions to the hobby. Because through this simplicity, there have been hours, years of campaign gameplay that happened simply because people use this method and still do. So, caves or cavern for recovering ruins. Now, there it's been overrun by a specific kind of monster. So we should decide, the next step is decide on special monsters to be used. DM should decide what special monsters not placed by the Wandering Monster table will be used. Some monsters will be placed by the DM because of the scenario chosen. The DM may create or change some monsters to fit the dungeon. So we will think about this. So the cool part about basic is that you have levels 1, 2, and 3 Wandering Monster tables. Use them like an index. Don't use them. Don't, like I said, and like Moldvay said, choose the monster. Decide on the monster. Don't roll for it. Decide on it. That being said, you can use them as an index. And I want to talk. I want to specifically call out a lot of the people that are in the OSR side of the hobby these days for using expert level monsters in their basic for to put against their basic level party. That's not cool. That's not the game. That's not the way the game was ever ran. So stop doing it. That's um, the reputation that basic expert rules are this imbalanced mess of horribleness is primarily due to a lot of people not using the game correctly, and misunderstanding the purpose of the distinction between basic and expert. There is a game balance that now the game balance does not mean guaranteed victory or guaranteed win. Game balance merely means that these challenges are more meant. These monsters should be viewed more like obstacles to be overcome, rather than monsters to kill. So there we go. So what kind of monsters can we come up with? Now, the cool part about Caves and Cavern is that the bestiary has no shortage of monsters that are tailor-made for this. And that being said, you could also put in some very strange things like green slime and stuff like that. Some very weird stuff. But by and large, we need a monster that has overrun these ruins. So what kind of monsters are camping out here? We can come up with an idea. Uh, Daniel Norton had this idea of taking a D6 and deciding, using it as a D3, what level monster to decide, and what level table to use when coming up with this idea. So let's say we don't know. We rolled a 2, which means that it is on a D3 or 1. So let's use the Wandering Monster level 1. Good beginning adventure for the party. So let's say we throw in, okay, let me decide here. I think having, this was probably once a dwarvish village, but they've been chased out. Of course, dwarves are natural enemies of goblins, so let's say that this is now a goblin lair. So let's go ahead. We decided that there's going to be goblins here. We're going to put a goblin king here. How many goblins are in here? Well, you know what? Let's just wait a second. So, draw a map in the dungeon. Let's just say we went ahead and drew the map. We went ahead. I highly recommend coming up with ideas for rooms, like dedicated specific things. Generally, something like this, I would say, okay, this would probably have obviously some residential spots. If this is the ruins of a dwarvish village, probably what used to be an armory or a forge. Just kind of brainstorm, get creative. And next we'll start the dungeon. Let's just say we place our monsters, which by the way, we're going to determine how many goblins we want to use. We'll say there's a goblin king here, because there's always a goblin king within a layer, and he's treated as a 3 hit die monster. So let's just say, okay, so 6d10s. So we have 6 plus, so we have 16, we have 18, and 21, 31, and finally 33. So there are 33 goblins in here. Now we're going to dedicate 8 of these goblins. So we have 31 goblins, so we're going to dedicate 8 of them to patrolling as wandering monster encounters. So we'll take that, and that'll take some work off of us too. So we'll take the 31 minus 8, and it's more like 23. So we're going to have 23 goblins um, plus a king, and the king will have 2d6 bodyguards, 5, 6. So we'll go ahead and we'll chop 6 off of that. So that's more like pretty small tribe. So that's, we said 23 before, so minus 6 equals 17 regular goblins. There you go. So 17 regular goblins walking around, 6 bodyguards for the one Goblin King. And the Goblin King I normally don't put um, as as part of the general population. So there you go. What is our total treasure hoard? We'll come up with an idea. Now, it uses Type C treasure for the layer. So just as an example, and this is just us riffing. This is just us, displaying and doing a showcase of the Moldvay method. So there's a 20% chance of having copper. Did we get any copper? Take our percentile, and there is copper. There is that was the wrong die. Okay. We have 9,000 copper. Okay, cool. So we have 30% chance of having silver. We did not get any silver. We have a 10% chance of electrum. We did not get electrum. We have no chance of gold, no chance of platinum. We have 25% chance of gems and jewelry. So first for gems, no gems. How about jewelry? No jewelry. All right. So how about magical items? 10% chance. We did not get any. So all we have is copper. We have so that's like 90 gold pieces. Now I don't think that's a good enough haul. So what I'm going to do is play a little game of GM Fiat. We want to say that we're going to look at the table above on B45. It says that to aid the GM, average values in gold pieces of each treasure are given below. And so there's type C is listed as an average of 1,000 gold pieces. So of treasure. So if we distribute that 90, 90 gold pieces equals 9,000 copper. So there you go. Let's see here. And we could just kind of come up with the idea. We'll use like the rest of it for like gems and jewelry and stuff like that. But that's just kind of when you're like, that treasure haul seems very light, because 90 gold pieces worth of copper sucks. You could okay, so let's just take 1,000 of the gold pieces of the average, and we'll just apply it somewhere else. So we'll just apply it however we want because I feel like those rolls were terrible. So there you go, a little bit of GM Fiat. Try to keep this game interesting to your players and try to make the experience rewarding. You want the reward to match the danger. So not a lot of goblins when you think about it. We're going to be spreading them out. Now, obviously, the king and his 6 bodyguards, they're going to be like kind of sequestered into their own little area. Pardon me. So there you go. Let's take a look more at the goblins. They're small, so I would highly recommend having some little alcoves that they carved for themselves. They stumbled upon this dwarven village, and they've made more alcoves that only they can fit through. So make like 5-foot hallways, 5-foot crawl spaces, and stuff like that. Things that will force players to get down on their hands and knees and have to go single file through. Make this kind of treacherous. Make this kind of rough. But obviously we don't want to put our players into an impossible scenario, simply a challenging one. So we have that. Let's see. Looking at the so there's a 20% chance that when goblins are encountered, 1 out of every 4 will be riding a dire wolf. Okay, so we can take our 16 that we had, 20% chance, so nope, 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 nope. Yep. So we're gonna have dire wolves. So a very good method is to. So this will help us build our. Well, you know what? That's more of a. It's more of a wilderness encounter kind of thing. But then again, we can have like a pen of these things. So how many dire wolves are going to be here? We're going to roll 2d4, and we're going to come up with 2, 6. So a total of 6 dire wolves for these goblins. So there you go. They're going to have like a dire wolf holding area, a kennel kind of thing for them, that they feed them and keep them. So there you go. So there's another monster to add to that. And then of course, stocking the dungeon, you can either randomly roll, or you can randomly generate using a D6 method. So let's just say, for example, our first roll is for room contents. The first room they come upon is a monster. And does it have treasure? Absolutely has treasure. So we place the treasure in there. That is more like a lair kind of treasure. So, you come up with that. But generally speaking, what I typically do is I try to have, for every room that has a monster, there's going to be 3 empties. And you should, if you think you have too many empty rooms, put some traps. Goblins are well known for traps, so put some traps. And when you're done placing traps, come up with specials, some kind of rooms to kind of break up the monotony. Moaning room or corridor, room turns or sinks when the door locks. Illusionary stairs or corridor, shifting block to close off corridor, trap door to the tunnels, alarm that summons special monsters. Talking statue, magical pool whose waters have a strange effect, magical gate to another part of the dungeon, flying weapons which only attack if disturbed. Those are just some general ideas for generating special rooms. But by and large, you should let your creativity take hold. And if you feel like a dungeon is getting a little bit too wild or a little bit too mundane, again, this is not to come up with a randomly generated dungeon. This is more of to orient yourself into creating a fun adventure for your friends. That's what this hobby is all about. And I think a lot of people kind of lose track of that because a lot of them are too interested in the more gonzo stuff. Dungeon ecology was always a thing, and I think Moldvay kind of proves that when he leaves a scenario and he leaves a setting. It's like, well, you had to assume some kind of dungeon ecology whenever you do something like that. But I'm rambling, so hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of that's just kind of how I do it. And like I said, I operate with a rule of 3, 3 empties to 1 room with a monster in it. So, and then like you can go back and like put some treasure, place some treasure, place some traps. Whatever you want to do, however you feel like makes the place more interesting. But anyway, hopefully, guys, this was an interesting video for you. Maybe we'll actually do a live stream where I create a dungeon on the fly. However, I do plan on running a game pretty soon on a stream. So, of course, I don't want to use any of my stuff that I stream. So, as always, guys, I want to thank you. As always, take care. God bless. I'll see you on the other side. So, thank you for watching.